First, UNEP should establish an institution for the purpose of training individuals and groups in MFR methodologies. It's kind of a center of excellence institutions. It is important because currently in the countries that are running RED Plus has different standards which may reduce the validity of carbon stock data. And this problem can threat RED Plus sustainability in terms of effectiveness method, efficiency costs, and also international equity. And the second recommendations, UNEP should encourage the government of Indonesia to refer to the Forest Carbon Partnership Facilities Readiness Preparation Proposals. And the third one, UNEP should offer appropriate technology transfers to supply Indonesia with the best technology for MRV. And the last one, UNEP and UNRED must ensure that Indonesia's MRV institution publish MRV resource policy and transparently at a national level. And the fourth one is UNEP should be encouraged to the government of Indonesia to establish a community-based monitoring system by drafting contracts with local communities. UNEP should facilitate a forum for the MRV working group which be held annually as the next step in the reporting their own results. And the last recommendations, UNEP should recommend that RED Plus participants create independent national verification agencies and offer both legal and scientific advice to facilitate this purpose to help create efficient, equitable, and effective verification institutions. And the last chapter about international community participation will be presented by Neti Rianasari.
Hi, it's me again. Thankfully that this is the last chapter, Pak Farid, so we will not hold you any longer in this room. And for you to... Okay, the last chapter is the international community participation. First, when we're writing on this chapter, we agree that we have to put our feet in the not conclusion, but the same understanding that RED Plus is a global design. It is a global design as financial incentives to monetize carbon stocks in developing countries. In my presentation, we will hear a lot about developed and developing countries later. Not that lot because this is not that long. And the second one is a background for this. Deforestation happened in Indonesia. We have to acknowledge first what is the driver of deforestation happen in Indonesia. And then later on in our writing, we know that the international demand for Indonesia's environmentally destructive cash crops is one of the biggest driver that is driving the deforestation in Indonesia. And the third one is there is this conflict of interest and strategies amongst international participants within RED Plus implementation in Indonesia. Because here, nowadays in Indonesia, like my presentation before in the funding mechanism, we acknowledge that there are 44 demonstration activities take place in Indonesia, and most of them are coming from outside Indonesia, from foreign funding. The policy considerations we found in this chapter is the engage in joint carbon offsetting efforts amongst developed and developing countries. Before the discussion about RED Plus in international communities, the debate in climate change is about the historical emission. Who should be responsible for this amount of emission in the world? And the debate is that the developed countries or industrial countries are taking the biggest responsibility for these so-called historical emissions. But then RED Plus then constructed as a one of the global mitigation efforts. The debate is shifting into that the developing countries or the forest countries have to take care of their forests in order to maintain the amount of carbon in the world. The second one is, again, we have to acknowledge what is the biggest driver of deforestation in Indonesia. One of the biggest driver, like I told you before, is the destructive forest production. One of the example that we deliver in our report is palm oil plantation. In 1985, we have only 600,000 hectares of palm oil in Indonesia. But then in 2011, the figure shift into 8.4 million hectares. And the demand of palm oil is still continue to increase to Indonesia. And if we use the business mind to think about this, this is a very big opportunity for the business to just convert some land in Sumatra or in Kalimantan to be palm oil plantation, and we can get a lot of money from it. So that it is important to decrease the destructive forest production with market mechanism and create incentives for sustainable options, because the demand is mainly coming from the international world for the palm oil. And the third, regarding to there are so many actors, so many international actors entering Indonesia within REDD Plus framework, then we should build a respect towards Indonesian sovereignty through the alignment of international participants' interests and strategies with the government of Indonesia, with the interest of the government of Indonesia. Because the sovereignty to exploit the sovereign rights to exploit our natural resources, our forests in this term, is guaranteed by the Principle 21 of Stockholm Declaration. It is stated that states have their sovereign rights to exploit their natural resources, including forest. But then in Indonesia, these sovereign rights then make Indonesian government make a big exploitation in Indonesian forests then, which then resulted in 2007 World Bank's report that stated Indonesia as the third biggest emitter in the world, which most of the emission coming from deforestation. Okay. Then, after acknowledging those problems, again, we proposed some of the policy recommendation to UN. First point is that UNEP should design a legally binding agreement to share responsibility in carbon emission reduction efforts. As we said before, that carbon emission is not only the responsible of developed countries or developing countries. We live in the same world and we only have one Earth. Thus, whatever happened to our Earth is our responsibility. United States and Indonesia we have the same responsible to reduce our emission. When Indonesia's trying to reduce our emission by reducing deforestation, then developed countries and other part of the world can help Indonesia by maybe giving us money. Joking. And UNEP, sorry. And UNEP, we see that UN is the best body to put the design of this legally binding agreement to the international community. Second point is that UNEP should coordinate with the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil to improve the transparency and efficacy of certified sustainable palm oil. We cannot stop the world to need palm oil. We cannot stop to eat chocolate, right? And one of the material to make our delicious chocolate is palm oil. So the best way we propose is that there should be certificates. There should be the improvement in managing this palm oil plantation and this palm oil production. And the third one is UNEP should lobby for international trade bans of unsustainably grown palm oil. Correlating to the second bullet point of our recommendation, we have to have this some sort of a law, international law, in banning the trade of unsustainably grown palm oil in the world. And the last one is UNEP should promote increased international coordination with the government of Indonesia objectives and strategies through a letter of intent. Because no matter the world say that forest in the forest countries is the world's lung, but again, the forest is located within a country's sovereignty. Thus, any international community need this forest should have a good coordination with and should have an alignment with the national interest of that forest country. I think that is our last words to say, but then again, so that you don't have to see we back and forth changing seat, I will read the conclusion for all of us. What is the conclusion? Wait. Okay. REDD Plus has a big potential to substantially increase the ability to adapt to climate change. Because with REDD Plus, we can stop debate who has the biggest responsibility in carbon emission of the world. By addressing the root causes of deforestation and forest degradation, REDD Plus seeks to improve forest owners and users to conserve their forest carbon and engage in sustainable forests on prior failed attempts to alleviate forest destruction. Thus, REDD Plus then offers a new approach by paying management. But before moving to this paying management, as our very long presentation this whole day, there were this mechanism, there were this infrastructure that needs to build. Wait, again. Whoa. It is important for us to recognize that none of the policy recommended that we have been presented, Pak Farid, it is important that they are not the silver bullet solutions. REDD Plus is an immensely complex program, and the impediments to its success are similarly multifaceted. Another principle that must be addressed is the issue of sustainability. Sorry. Many challenges regarding REDD Plus implementation are discussed in this presentation, and all are geared towards ensuring long-term success. Sustainability is important because climate change is not simply an obstacle to overcome. Climate change is a long-term issue, and as such requires long-term solutions. Then REDD Plus must address this if it is to adequately reduce the burden of adaptability to the negative consequences of global climate change. A further issue in the sustainability of REDD Plus then concerns the commitment of stakeholders, our commitment, developed countries, developing countries, and even us as the youth. Relevant stakeholders include the international community, central and local branches of the government of Indonesia, and also the local communities. These parties have the potential to revoke their participation at any stage of REDD Plus in Indonesia. These stakeholders are dynamic, considering that their positions depend on factors such as social or political conditions. Sustained political and financial commitment to REDD Plus is necessary to make it resilient beyond shifting political landscapes. It is important that UNEP encourage all stakeholders to maintain their commitment to REDD Plus. Keeping these principles in mind, adhering to the principles set forth will help Indonesia successfully reduce emissions from deforestation and forest degradation and enhance forest carbon stocks, and then the world can say that Indonesia's forest is the world's lungs. Thank you very much for your patience in listening our very long discussions here. And then again, the presentation is closed. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Sorry for a quite long presentation, but this is amazing, even for me, because they start with zero knowledge about REDD, but now they quite expert, and also people who read it, it's actually quite amazing that they can produce this such interesting report. So please, Pak Farid, if this is your time now. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, everybody. I am happy to be here, and I'm happy to read this report, comprehensive report. I think there are a lot of points that youth team already produced here. But I'm happy to work with this team, and actually I have already read the summary of this report, because this report is a very a lot of pages, 225 pages. Yeah. But before I'm starting, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Muhammad Farid. My nickname is Farid. I'm working for National Council on Climate Change as a secretary for post-Kyoto working group, and I actually attended a lot of seminar, workshop that talking about red development in Indonesia. So I'd like to thank you, Bu Suraya, to invite me here, and nice to meet you guys in US. I'm sorry I didn't meet you when you come to Indonesia, but this is a great challenge to discuss with you about what we find in our yacht work in Jakarta and Bogor. Yeah, as I said, I think all of our component already covered this in this report, but I have some of general comment. First, I think we have a lot of homework, a lot of policy recommendation and policy consideration that the team already pointed out. But I'd like to start with sharing my general views that actually I'm happy with the principle, the three tools to analyze red development in Indonesia, which are effectiveness, efficiency, and equity. I think this is three component always emerge in every single discussion and seminar about red development in Indonesia. And also I would like to emphasize about policy intervention that I didn't see in this report actually, because you may aware that our national red strategy already lists down about the driver of deforestation. We analyze, we use a fishbone analyze about the driver of deforestation, but we need to create actually a policy intervention to address those driver of deforestation and forest degradation in Indonesia. And we didn't yet come up with a policy intervention, what kind of policy intervention we have to create. And I believe that UKP4, Satgas Red, is progressing to develop and to develop some of a program and relate with building block or ingredients of red architecture in Indonesia. And the second point I would like to point out about demonstration activities. Demonstration activities in Indonesia, we have about 33 demonstration activities. We should treat this demonstration activity as a source of lesson learned, because there are a lot of best practice in the field made by project proponent and project developer. Many of them in Kalimantan and also in Sumatra, but we didn't have a demonstration activity at other island. We also, I also want to emphasize about national circumstances, national legislation, and also sovereignty. I know there are a lot of finding from youth team, but we have to remember that UNFCCC mandated to the parties that we need to take into account, to take consideration about our national circumstances and also national legislation. Yeah, I know that there are a lot of overlapping regulation in Indonesia, but yeah, we need to analyze about it. And I think I'd like to recommend that there are a lot of initiative in Indonesia that try to come up with to enrich red development in Indonesia. For example, FCPF program funded by World Bank, and also FIP, Forest Investment Program. And yeah, we need to more deep interview with Satgas, because Satgas Red, I think now they said that there are 10 working group in Satgas, so we need to meet every single group and try to find out the current progress. And another general view from me, I think there is a gap between policy consideration and policy recommendation. I mean, I happy with the policy consideration, but I didn't see the best solution that you recommend to solve the problem. For example, let me see about intra-ministry coordination, horizontal coordination and vertical coordination. How we will solve this problem? You didn't mention on your policy recommendation, but I think this is a common problem in Indonesia. And right now, when we have red, we didn't yet know how to solve this problem, this potential problem. Actually, I would like to say that. And yeah, I agree that this is not a silver bullet solution, but yeah, we need to. I mean, there are a lot of policy consideration in your finding, but we have to come up with the best solution for. Yeah, if you, I think you can maybe you can ask or interview somebody else that understand about our governance in Indonesia. Yeah, I just remember that in your study you didn't yet involve parliament. I mean, parliament parliament has an important role actually to push red implementation in Indonesia, and we can we can emerge about overlapping regulation and many others point we have to discuss with Parliament actually. Now I'd like to more detail on each presentation. Yeah, I know this is I think this is a long presentation. Yeah, so I have some of notes for the first presentation. Yeah, I'd like to say that Red National Strategy show us that about 60% of emission from forestry sector, and it means that Red has agreed or important rule to reduce emission in Indonesia. But as I said previously, that yeah, we have already known and listed the driver of deforestation, but we need to come up with a solution how to address it. So again, I'd like to see some of a point in your report about the solution. Yeah, in your presentation, you actually point out about driver of deforestation, but we need to also focus on 3 other activities of REDD+, and how we will treat conservation of carbon, sustainable management of forest, and also enhancement carbon stock. Yeah, I agree that many of Indonesia document only emphasize about 2D deforestation and forest degradation. In terms of land tenure issue, yeah, this I agree that definition is such of a problem, but I would like to treat this challenge to synchronize actually. Synchronize the definition made by FAO and definition made by government of Indonesia to synchronize. So I think this point already took into account by Ministry of Forestry. But if we would like to talk about how to involve indigenous people and local community as a project developer, I think Ministry of Forestry already discussed about it and will come up with guidance. And as you may aware that in our Minister of Forestry degree already pointed out that indigenous people and local community can be project proponent and project developer. But of course, there are a lot of requirements that they have to follow. The second presentation about good governance, I think I agree with your policy recommendation, but again, we have to remember about national circumstances, national legislation and sovereignty, because global effort, we are happy to share global effort to stabilize greenhouse gases, but UNFCCC also remind us that hey guys, you have national circumstances, you have to take into account about it. In